Hey, it's Sandra Pike from Royal Page Atlantic and the Pike Group, and I am so happy to be talking to different industry members, not just real estate agents, but getting the perspective of mortgage brokers and appraisers and what they actually think about our market and where we're headed. And today I have an appraiser, and I'm going to let you do the introductions, where you work, and how long you've been there.
Well, my name is Derek Bellefontaine. I am a designated appraiser for the Canadian Institute, and I am with Meritech Appraisals, and I am one of the three owners, and I've been an appraiser for 18 years now.
Oh, I didn't know it was that long.
Yeah, I know, it's scary.
So totally off topic, Bellefontaine, is that a Atlantic Canadian name?
Yeah, Acadian from the Eastern Shore.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to, 2020 when it just started getting busy, and now we are in more of a steadier market. What is the difference, differences in your appraisals now that you are completing residentially?
Well, when everything first started, I think of March 2020, we had no idea what was going to happen. We didn't know if the bottom was going to fall out of the market, or we assumed that was going to be the case. We had no idea it was going to take off. So we were doing a lot of modified appraisals at that time. We were doing the first couple of weeks, we didn't know what to do. So the bank was allowing us just to do desktop. Then we would drive out and go to visit the properties, and then the homeowners would send us pictures, and then we would do it that way. And then as restrictions started to ease, we started to go into homes and stuff like that and get back to normal. But then the market just took off, and we were kind of hanging on for dear life and not really sure what to do. But just kind of keeping up, and the market, our business took off, and we had a hard time actually keeping up with it.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Now, are you seeing a difference I feel that during the pandemic, a house would have appraised out what someone would have purchased it for. Mm-hmm. Is that what's happening now, or are the banks more stringent, about how a house is appraised?
No, I don't think they're more stringent. I think not so much the last few months, but first 4 or 5 months of the year, people they didn't care. They were just paying anything over and above, and which was challenging to us because we were having a hard time meeting purchase prices because there just wasn't the data to support those prices. There was constantly a new high bar set for each street and subdivision, and I'm sure, as you realized, it was definitely hard to keep up.
Yeah. So did you see many deals fall during the pandemic, or are you seeing any deals fall now?
Not really deals fall, but I have seen instances where people have to come up with extra money because we just couldn't, again, the data was not there to support either the purchase price or typically the purchase price. Yeah.
So having said that, is that trend now, or was that trend prior to?
Well, that trend is still kind of now, because we were dealing with a peak in prices, and now that it's kind of tapered off a little bit and leveled off, as to say. But now people are still we're using comparables now that have come down a little bit, but then some people are still purchasing for high prices. And typically those are out of town purchasers.
So I always like to talk about High Rigger. It was a house in Sackville that sold, baby split, listing at $275, selling for $500. Now that was during the pandemic, and one sold recently for $331. Would the seller of the house who purchased at $500,000, if he were to go sell his house now, will he get $520,000 for that house now, or will he get the $331,000 house? Like, would it appraise out at that, at 525, for example?
No, probably not, because now we would consider that an outlier, and we would have to cast that aside. And because we just had an instance with this, another appraisal in our firm was doing one. He came in there was a purchase price, and it was in Eastern Passage, Heritage Hills. So lots of current data. And there was one that sold for $100,000 higher than this guy was purchasing this one for. And he was wondering what to do. He said, I've got 3 other sales that are more recent. And I said, use the recent sales, because that's a more accurate data impression of what the data is. Or that's more accurate data for what the value is.
So when you're doing recent sales, like, would you be going back 6 months, or now the way the market has shifted so quickly, are you just going back maybe 30 days?
Well, 30 days if possible. We're allowed to go back 6 months, but again, if we go back 3 months, then the value is going to be out of whack again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we can go back more recent, the better, for sure.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, so are you seeing any type of what type of decline are you seeing?
Well, it still varies. There's still a lot of out-of-town purchasers. So we're seeing a lot of people that are relocating here still, not quite as many, still finding a lot of people that are purchasing for investment properties as well.
Oh, now I heard that investment properties are probably on a higher scale, more so now than residential.
Yeah.
When you do residential now, let's say from even, what are we now, September the 12th, even let's say from mid-August, are you seeing, I don't know, do you see what someone is paying for the home?
Yeah. We see
Okay.
all that stuff. Yeah.
So would you see that there's a lot more of over asking? Because from what we understand, it's only around 37,000 over asking. Are you seeing more than
Yeah.
that?
I'm seeing, I would say, even less than that. A lot of the sales that I'm doing, that I've done recently, are asking and right around, maybe a few bucks over, but I've seen under ask as well.
And I
So
mean, which is normal for our market, like right up
that's
to
more.
2019, your house was selling. I could go into any house and tell Mr. Seller, your house will sell at 97% of asking price, because that was the norm. And, during the pandemic, I said, Mr. Seller, how much would you like to get for your house? Okay, this is what we're going to price your house at, so you can get the over asking.
Yeah, it was crazy.
So I like to make reference to, although it was a shorter period of time, I feel that our market is like when it was in 2012, when we had the ships start here, we had that blip in the market. But if a seller sold their house within 1 to 5 years, they may have not got what they had purchased the house for. They may have received less. I feel that that's what's going to happen now.
Yeah, unfortunately, it may be the case because it's trending that way right now, which is unfortunate.
But not in all areas.
Not in all areas, no. And there's areas of Bedford that are still remaining strong, very strong. Then the South End is always going to remain strong. Anything really on the peninsula, because they're not making any more land, so that's always going to be a strong part. Outskirts are not seeing the stability that they have.
Yeah. So I believe Harrietsfield area was very successful during the pandemic, and I think the average house price point was in and around the 600,000. And I don't know how that part of town would be sustainable to that continued price.
Yeah, I don't think it is. Funny, I was actually out there this morning right in Harrietsfield, and it's stabilized for sure and dropped off a little bit. I think you're going to see Sackville a little bit like that, and Fairview.
So to confirm, stabilize, and yes, it's going to be around 600, or stabilize, it's going to be around
stabilize right now, and then probably going down likely. I mean, nobody knows. Nobody saw the big boom coming, so we don't really know, but we can assume that it's not going to hold. Certain areas are not going to hold value as well as others.
Absolutely. That's my thought too, Derek, truth be told.
Yeah.
And it is but if you looked at the South End, that was one of the slowest markets during the pandemic. And it was they've had their glory, for example, right? The outlying communities such as Sackville, Sambro, Williamswood, they never had that bump in prices. It's only, they were lucky to even get 2% each year.
That's right.
And God love, the sellers during that time, they would have done remarkably well. But even now, I guess if you go to sell your house, you're still going to do better than what you would have done in 2019.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So which is still a plus, right?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's always a house is always going to be a good investment. It's just how long before it's going to be a good investment.
That's I like how you said that.
Yeah.
So who would have been your biggest clientele throughout the pandemic? Would have been someone refinancing, or would have been like a resale purchase?
It kind of went in a wave, because at the very beginning, it was people refinancing that they may have been thinking about selling their house and then didn't know what was going on. So they're like, well, let's just stay here for a couple more years, but we'll sink some money into it. So we'll refinance and put an addition on or whatever. Then people saw the boom and they started to want to cash out. So
Yes.
we saw a lot of people selling to out of town purchasers, and then now it's kind of gone back to refinancing.
Interesting. And the refinancing, of course, would add to the deficit of housing that we're having here in Halifax right now.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm surprised it's still it did slow down for a little bit a few weeks ago when I think the last interest hike, people kind of panicked a little bit, but I'm not seeing any slowdown from this current interest hike. So
No, with refinancing or with purchasing?
Actually with both. Yeah,
Interesting.
I slowed down about 2 weeks ago to a normalized rate, and then I picked back up again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I agree with you. It's still a great, why I think it's a great time to purchase a house is because you are not competing as much as you would have. And
Yeah.
oddly enough, didn't I have, just this morning, I had two people interested in a property. Well, they would have texted last night. And, so one wrote the offer. So I reached out to the other agent, will you be submitting an offer? And the client didn't want to get into a competitive bid. And which I'm like, this was our market for the past 2 years. And now I'm seeing buyers, like I was shocked to have a buyer shy away from a competitive offer this morning.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm kind of surprised to hear that. That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, I mean, again, just given the market that we,
Yeah. Now, question for you. Were they local buyers?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that might have been the difference.
Absolutely. Well, both were local buyers. My definition of how our market is now is that although we're in a seller's market, we're in a buyer market mentality. Just the way to explain that, we've never really had booms of immigration here. It's always been D&D, they've always had their military moves, which is normal.
Yeah.
We did have normal immigration, but last year it was just the perfect storm, 2 years of military and, interprovincial moving, and then people just coming back home.
Yeah.
And now we just have our regular markets and with no sense of urgency.
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, we were out yesterday and I from the water, we saw, I think we counted 10 or 12 cranes. There's dwellings and single family and apartment buildings and condos going up everywhere. It's crazy. So, I mean, there's definitely an influx of people because they're filling up these spots.
But not the way it used to be. But we did have a great population boom.
Yeah.
So you don't see any homes falling on appraisal now, which is wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, not in my situations with my appraisals and with any of the ones that I review that come out of Meritech. We try and do the best we can, but I mean, all we're determining is market value anyway. So we can only go by what the data the market provides for us. And then I see, if they really want the house, they'll top it up with the money out of their savings or whatever it is.
Yeah. Is there a difference between when a bank orders an appraisal as opposed to I'm coming to you because I needed an appraisal to, separate assets? Is there differences in that type of an appraisal?
Not really. We do. There's a few extra forms that go along with it, but essentially we're still trying to determine the market value, the current market value of the home. So that's what we do. The only other time we don't try and determine that in these forms is if we're doing retrospective or future perspective values. Yeah, but it's still essentially a market value. It's either current, past, or present.
This is something I'm just thinking of now. When someone does a purchase plus improvement,
yeah,
does that play into what you offer in your appraisals?
So basically what that is we take how the house looks today and then say they're adding a 12 by 20 addition on the side. We would imagine that already being in place. Then we would value the home that way and then compare it to homes of that size, not as of current size, but the size it's going to be, and then value it that way. And then when they're done with the addition, we go back to just verify. The bank wants us to go back to verify that what they said they were going to do is in fact done.
Interesting. That's great. So although you and I are in, similar industries but we do some of the same work, except you're a little bit more detailed than what we would do. Sure. What advice would you give to a buyer now?
6 months ago, it was hang tight. Don't buy anything, as much as you guys probably hated us for doing that. But if it was my friend or something, And even myself, I told myself I'm not buying anything. Then I went and bought something 3 months ago, which was not, I'm in the industry and I bought it the worst time. But, it's just, if the house comes along that you want, go ahead and buy it. It's, it will eventually be worth what you're paying for it. I'm still waiting for that time, and it's going to be a little while yet, but
It's hard to follow your own advice, isn't it?
oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. So but it's getting to be a time to buy again. So
I agree. I think
yeah.
it's, again, today, like, only one offer and the other person didn't want to compete. So, I mean, giddy
Yeah.
up to that buyer, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and although, Mr. Seller, I can't get you what the neighbor sold for, you still are going to profit on your home. Just maybe not as much, but it's still a great time to sell even.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree.
Well, boss, thank you so much for your time today. And you know what? I'm finally meeting you face to face after
Yeah, exactly.
12 years.
Yeah, lots of deals. We've done lots of deals together and for each other, but never met face to face. So there you go. It was a pleasure,
Awesome.
and thank you very much for inviting me to join you today.
Yes, thank you, Derek.
All right, thank you.